You think you have a discipline problem. But what if I told you it's not about discipline at all? It's about fear. Old, invisible fear. Hiding behind your routines, your failures, your endless restarts. You're not weak. You're not lazy. You're protecting yourself from something you don't fully understand. Carl Jung believed that what we repress doesn't disappear. It waits. It watches. And when we avoid discipline, it's often not the structure we're afraid of, but what structure awakens inside us. Because discipline isn't just about doing the work. It's about facing the parts of yourself that resist growth. That fear being seen, that fear being good enough because deep down, you were told you never were. So each time you try to commit, something pushes back. That something is your shadow. And until you meet it, discipline will always feel like self-betrayal. But once you understand what's really underneath, you'll never look at your resistance the same way again. Why does discipline, something meant to help you, feel like a threat? Because in your early environment, being disciplined likely meant being controlled. It meant surrendering your emotions, masking your needs, and becoming who others needed you to be, even if it broke you inside. You learn to associate consistency with pressure, achievement with survival, and failure with rejection. So now, when you try to build habits or follow through, your body remembers. It doesn't remember the goal. It remembers the pain. It's not that you're avoiding effort. You're avoiding the emotional weight that effort used to carry. You're not resisting work. You're resisting the inner critic that was born when love became conditional. Carl Jung wrote that the shadow is everything we refuse to acknowledge about ourselves. But here's the twist. Your shadow doesn't just hold darkness. It holds forgotten power. Your resistance isn't laziness. It's intelligence. Wounded intelligence. It's a system designed to protect you from the shame you once felt every time you didn't measure up. So every time you sabotage your plans, every time you fail to follow through, a part of you is simply trying to keep you safe from the emotional punishment you once endured. Until you recognize that, you'll keep fighting the wrong enemy. Discipline isn't your enemy. Your past is. And the healing begins when you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What happened to me that made discipline feel so unsafe?" There's something powerful that happens when you stop seeing discipline as a demand and start seeing it as a relationship. Because that's what it is. Your ability to commit, to repeat, to focus, it all reflects your relationship with yourself. And if that relationship is built on pressure, shame, or fear, then discipline will always feel like punishment. Most people don't fail because they lack motivation. They fail because they're still trying to motivate themselves through inner violence. They speak to themselves like the parent who never accepted them. They build goals the way they once tried to earn approval. They tie their worth to output and call it self-improvement. But real transformation isn't born from self-hatred. It's born from integration. Carl Jung believed that healing happens when we bring light to what we've pushed into the dark, especially the parts of us we've labeled as lazy, undisciplined, or broken. These parts aren't flaws, they're messages. And if you can listen without judgment, they'll show you exactly where the wound is. If this is speaking to something inside you, if you're starting to see your resistance with new eyes, consider subscribing to this channel. Because we don't just talk about change, we go to the root of it. Let's continue. Discipline, at its core, is not about controlling yourself. It's about trusting yourself. And trust can't grow where shame lives. Think about this. How do you treat yourself when you fail? Most people respond with harshness. They double down. They punish. They call themselves weak. They try to crack the whip, as if that ever worked in the first place. But here's the truth. You can't shame yourself into discipline. You can only wound yourself further. Shame doesn't produce strength. It produces silence. It teaches you to hide, to disconnect, to pretend everything's fine while falling apart inside. Carl Jung believed that wholeness comes not from perfection, but from embracing contradiction, from holding space for both your light and your shadow. So yes, there's a part of you that wants to grow. But there's also a part that's scared to death of what growth might cost. Maybe growth meant losing people. Maybe it meant standing out when all you wanted was to belong. Maybe it meant admitting you had needs in a world that punished you for having them. So you learned to stay small, to self-sabotage, to confuse safety with stagnation. Discipline triggers that same wound, because deep down, it means stepping forward, alone. It means choosing yourself when no one else is clapping. It means giving what you never received. Consistency, care, patience. And that's terrifying, until it's not. Because with enough awareness, your fear stops being a wall and becomes a doorway. And the moment you walk through it, something shifts. Not because you forced yourself to be better, but because you finally allowed yourself to be whole. Let's get honest. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's not loud or dramatic. It's not the motivational high you feel for 2 days before burning out again. It's quiet. It's boring. It's deeply uncomfortable. Because it confronts the part of you that still wants immediate relief. The part that says, I'll start tomorrow. The part that thinks healing means always feeling good. But real growth? It's messy. It's full of days where you show up empty, unsure, afraid. But you show up anyway, and this is where most people quit. Not because they're incapable, but because no one taught them how to hold emotional discomfort without collapsing under it. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." That means no sustainable discipline without discomfort, and no transformation without facing what you've tried to avoid. So instead of asking, how do I stay consistent? Ask this: what am I feeling when I want to quit? What part of me is screaming for escape? Because discipline isn't just about what you do. It's about what you sit with. Every time you resist the urge to abandon yourself, you rewrite a story that once said, you can't handle this. A story that told you, you'll never change. But here you are, listening, feeling. That means something. You don't have to fix everything overnight. You just have to stay with yourself long enough to not disappear. That's where discipline begins. Some people think discipline means suppressing emotion. But real discipline is emotional work. It's the daily act of being present with what hurts and still choosing to move forward, not out of force, but from awareness. It means waking up and facing your resistance with compassion, not aggression. It means noticing the anxiety in your chest, the heaviness in your limbs, the fear in your gut, and choosing not to run. Because every day, your mind offers you 100 ways to escape. Scroll, snack, sleep, overthink, anything but feel. And yet, the moment you stay, the moment you listen to your discomfort instead of avoiding it, you reclaim your power. Carl Jung wrote that What you resist persists. That includes your patterns, your habits, your fears. They won't go away by ignoring them. They go away when you stop fearing them. So when discipline feels hard, don't just ask, "What's wrong with my routine?" Ask, "What emotion am I trying to avoid?" Often, it's not the task itself that drains you. It's the emotional baggage it brings up. The memory of failing, the fear of not being good enough, the echo of a voice that once said, "You'll never finish anything." Your shadow lives in these moments, and each time you face them, you integrate another piece of yourself. That's why discipline, true discipline, is spiritual. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to hide. Discipline without self-awareness becomes self-abuse. You can follow every productivity system, wake up at 5 a.m., block distractions, set goals. But if you're still running from your own feelings, you're not being disciplined. You're being disconnected. That's the trap. The world rewards appearances, the hustle, the output, the external success. But no one sees the emotional burnout beneath it. You can be consistent on the outside and still be collapsing internally. Because if discipline is just a mask for control, perfectionism, or fear of not being enough, then it's not discipline. It's trauma in disguise. Carl Jung taught that healing requires individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of the self. That includes the achiever in you and the one who wants to rest, the part that strives and the part that resists, the productive self and the wounded inner child who just wants to feel safe. The goal isn't to silence your resistance. It's to understand it. Because what you call procrastination might be your nervous system asking for care. What you label laziness might be years of emotional exhaustion finally catching up. You can't push your way through everything. Some things need to be held, not fixed. So what if, instead of forcing yourself, you started listening? What if your resistance isn't the problem, but the invitation to slow down, turn inward, and build a discipline that honors all of you, not just the parts you think are acceptable? Here's a radical idea. You don't need more pressure. You need more presence. Because pressure might push you forward for a while, but presence is what sustains you. It's the difference between forcing and choosing, between chasing discipline and embodying it. When you act from presence, you're not trying to prove anything. You're not performing. You're not dragging your inner child behind you, screaming for rest. You're connected, not just to your goals, but to yourself. Carl Jung believed that the journey of the self is not about domination, but integration. Not about becoming stronger than your shadow, but about holding your shadow with strength. That's why real discipline begins with softness. It begins with asking questions like, what am I truly feeling right now? Am I acting from fear or from clarity? Am I pushing through pain or gently guiding myself through it? The world doesn't teach you how to do this. It teaches you how to achieve, outperform, and endure. But it rarely teaches you how to stay with discomfort, with uncertainty, with yourself. And this is where the shift happens, when you stop running from what's hard and learn to breathe through it. Because discipline isn't just about doing the hard thing, it's about doing it consciously. That's how you stop repeating cycles. That's how you stop confusing pain with progress. That's how you heal, through awareness, not aggression. It's time to rewrite your story about discipline. The story that says you're lazy. The story that says you lack willpower. The story that makes you feel like a failure every time you stumble. None of that is true. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself to be someone you're not. It's about aligning with who you really are, fears, shadows, and all. Carl Jung taught that the path to wholeness involves facing the uncomfortable truth within ourselves. Not by running away, not by hiding behind excuses, but by stepping into the discomfort with courage and compassion. So next time you resist discipline, don't fight it. Don't shame yourself. Ask, what part of me is afraid? What does this resistance want me to see? Because resistance isn't the enemy, it's a messenger. And when you listen carefully, it leads you toward healing. Discipline becomes a form of self-respect, not punishment. A commitment to your growth, not a battle against yourself. You'll find that the more you embrace your whole self, the easier discipline becomes. Because discipline isn't a chain holding you back. It's the bridge guiding you home. Now imagine a discipline that doesn't drain you, but nourishes you. A discipline born not from fear, but from love. Not from obligation, but from choice. Carl Jung believed in the power of individuation, becoming your true self by integrating every part, even the shadow. When you bring light to your resistance, it loses its power. When you hold your fears with kindness, you free yourself. Discipline becomes not a burden, but a gift. A daily practice of honoring your soul's needs while moving forward. This is the discipline that heals, that transforms, that turns your wounds into wisdom, your struggles into strength. So next time you resist discipline, remember, you're not broken, you're becoming. And the journey toward true discipline begins not with force, but with compassion for every part of yourself. Thank you for walking this path with me. If this message resonated with you, consider subscribing, so we can explore these truths together, one step at a time. Remember, your resistance is not laziness. It's the language of your soul, asking to be heard.